The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Albany County News. I'm Mary Rozak, the Director of Communications for Albany County. And in the next 30 minutes or so, we are going to be talking about water once again. We've talked about the Hudson River before, but we're going to talk about one of the businesses that I find very fascinating that is at the Port of Albany. We're talking about Scarano Boat Building. Joining me today is Eric Everson, the shipyard facilities manager. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
It's actually Everson.
Everson.
Yeah.
I should have asked you that before we started.
That's okay.
Okay, forever and ever now I will remember
that.
Eric, what does a shipyard facilities manager do?
I deal with the customers coming in, whether they're transients or new construction or service work of local people. Mm-hmm. New construction.
Okay, so
we do it all.
So you do it all. So we are talking, of course, for those who don't know, Scarano Boat Building has been around since for many, many years. But 1974, John Scarano started it. I know you've been with them for over 25?
Over 25 years, yes.
Wow. How do you get involved with boat building, all of that in vessels, and because vessels is the term I know that's used most frequently?
Sure. There was I was involved in Cub Scouts many years ago, and the housing market fell out. And I was going to den meetings and working with a fellow den leader, and he was taking pictures of the construction of the Santa Maria. Mm-hmm. And I was doing side work, and I knew I was going back to work in the spring. He said, "Why don't you go down and talk to him?" And I went down to talk to him, and I said, I'm kind of interested in what you're doing. I know a little bit about boats. I've been in the Navy. I've been around canoes my whole life. And I said, I'm looking for work at least till springtime. And he said, sure, brought me on.
So we're talking late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, late 80s, yeah.
Okay.
And so I worked with him through the Santa Maria, and spring broke, and I said, this is great. I got to go back to work and make more money. Not that I wasn't making money there, and John said, no, wait, let's talk. And it's been a long time since.
That's how it happened.
Yeah.
So while Scarano was at one location, were you at the first location, or they had already moved to the present?
I've always been at the port.
At the present location at the port. So to give our audience a little bit of perspective, so John started in 84, about 10 years later. His brother, 74, 10 years later, Richard came in and joined him. And when I was looking, there are some fascinating things that I was reading about. They built their first Coast Guard certified passenger carrying vessel, the Dutch Apple II.
Yes.
Just, I believe it was last month's programming, we were talking about the Dutch Apple. Mm-hmm. And to have that piece of history and have it be one of the first and one of the most notable, probably one of the most notable local boats is very interesting. Were you involved in any of that?
Not in the original construction, but I've been involved with a lot of restoration work throughout the years. Mm-hmm. It's like anything in your house. If it needs to be fixed, over time it needs help, needs some service work, and I've done a lot of that. So. Mm-hmm.
What goes into, let's say, okay, so the Dutch Apple, comes in, and what does restoration work entail?
You may find some rotten boards. Being wood, you'll find wood and water over time rots. Mm-hmm. So we'll end up cutting the boards out and replacing boards, planking, some of the house structures, or modifications. Like we closed in the second deck and made that. It used to be an open second deck. Now it's closed in. Mm-hmm. So, we've done a number of modifications over the years that way.
Now let's also talk about we're talking wood, but over the years things have changed. It's not only wood that you work with.
Correct. When I started, it was a composite, a process called cold molding, which is laminating hull skin to frames, and then fiberglassing the outside. So you've got the sailing characteristics of a wooden boat, but you've got the maintenance of a fiberglass boat, so it won't rot from the outside. Then as it came along, we were doing some welding for projects in some of the wooden boats, and then we had somebody come along and say, can you build me a steel boat? And we worked with another contractor, and we trained some of our guys with them, and we built our first steel boat, and then it has now since moved to aluminum.
Okay.
And we've done some interesting things where we're doing canal boats, replicas of the old working canal boats.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll make an aluminum bottom so it doesn't have the rot issue of wood, but everything that the customer would see is traditional construction. It would look like a traditional canal boat. So, and we've done everything from mule-drawn canal boats to battery-powered. We've also put diesel engines in them.
Were you involved in anything that had to do with the bicentennial of the Erie Canal? Were there anything that you guys had anything to do with?
No, we didn't.
Okay. You talked about the aluminum bottoms and and not rotting like wood. When I think of aluminum, I think of rust. No.
Aluminum corrodes. It does well.
Corrodes, okay.
It doesn't rust like steel does.
Okay.
And
So,
especially in freshwater.
Okay.
So and these canal systems are mostly freshwater.
Okay.
So you don't have that issue. You'll throw some epoxy paint on the bottom of it, and it's there for years and years and years to come.
So has that really been the movement, moving away perhaps from wood and moving into other kind of composite, other materials?
For our company specifically?
Yeah, or in general.
No, I think it's with us. It's whoever has money and their choice of materials. We'll still have somebody come to us and say, "I'm looking for a cold molded sailboat," or "I want to make an aluminum sailboat," or "I want to make an aluminum tour boat," or a steel tour boat. And we'll go in the direction that they like. Aluminum is a lot easier to work with. It's a lot lighter.
Okay.
And you can cut it like wood. You can route it like wood. Steel, everything's ground, cut with a torch, and it's a lot dirtier.
Give us a sense, because this is something new. It's not only is it new for me, but new for, I'm sure, many people in the audience. How big are we talking on, is there an on average, when I say on average, and how long does it take when someone comes in and says, I'm looking for you to build me a boat? What are we talking about? Are we talking about months? Are we talking about years?
Well, the size is always an issue. We have a 150-ton travel lift, so that's our limitations. But if somebody came to us and said, we want to make a 300-ton boat, we'd figure out a way to get it in the water.
To put in perspective, what is like the Dutch apple? How many tons? Or I'm putting you on the spot like that. I'm just trying to get
I'm trying to
perspective.
I want to say it's 85.
Okay, all right. So to give somebody a sense of what we're talking about. Okay.
So we can move 150 tons with the travel lift. So we can actually drive in two shops with a boat that could be up to 130 feet and 150 tons, and drive into two bays.
But let's talk about the process then, because I had the privilege of going down and meeting John and touring the facility, and I'm amazed when I looked at different things and in process.
Sure.
But from start to finish, someone comes in. Do they come in with plans? And I do know some of the answers to this, but I'm going to have you walk us through. Do they come in with plans? Is it something that's designed? How does that work?
We've worked in both directions. We've worked with pre-designed boats, where we're working with another designer out of office. We have two design crew, and John is also a designer, so we call it three. Most of the time people will come in with a conceptual idea of what they want, the type of business they want, the interior. They've seen ideas in either magazines or books or other boats. And say, this is what I'm looking for. And then it's up to us with our design team to put that together.
Okay. So when it's being drafted or when it's being done, is it all computerized these days?
Yes, everything's computerized. When I started, it was about 80% hand-drawn.
Okay.
And then it started changing, and there was a fair amount of napkin drawings. It's like, okay, here's sort of what I want you to do, and we would go from there, and that was fun. But it was definitely, there was you would run across issues where, okay, now we've got this part that was coming through here, and then this part was coming through here, and somebody missed that part.
Okay.
Where when you're going with CNC, you can design the whole boat and say, here you go. And you'll be able to see in 3 layers.
Okay. So the design...
I'm sorry, I said CNC and CAD.
CAD,
So
okay.
when you're able to basically take the boat on a screen and rotate it around and look at all the different layers.
So you're seeing it
and
dimensionally.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And see what's going to interfere with each other.
How long approximately would that take, though, to go in and to actually do that building through those mechanisms? You're designing it.
The design, you could be up to 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
Because you've got systems, you've got the hull design, there's an array of things that you're trying to put into it, and then you have a pretty good idea of what you're doing, but there's always little details that are designed right up to the end.
So it's not as if, I'm trying to think of a car factory. You have a car and you're putting this, and this. It's different.
Because we're custom. We build, everything is different. We try to make parts that are the same, that we can plug in. That makes it easier, makes everything move faster if you can make a part that you've made before. But most of the time it's all different, so you're reinventing the wheel through each vessel.
But that's also exciting because
it is.
It's like a fingerprint.
Yes.
Right? So 3 to 6 months for the design phase, and then what happens?
We're a year, usually up to a year, and that depends on the interior finish, exterior finish, and how big the boat is. If it's a single deck, you could be putting it out in less than a year. But if you're going into a second deck, then it's going to be better than a year.
How many people are working at Scarano?
We typically run 17 now. We've had up to 30.
Wow, that's a lot of people. But then, of course, we're talking a lot of different functions.
Correct. Or, like I said, we have 2 bays, so we could have 2 jobs going on at the same time.
Okay. So, because each bay would take one job.
Yes.
One boat.
Yeah, and then we've got all the service work, and there's a storage area where we keep those boats, and they're worked on through the winter also.
So that's what I was going to say. I mean, we think typically of a shorter season here in the Northeast of being able to be out on the water. So what do you do when, summer and fall end? You're still hard at work, obviously, on different phases.
That's our busy time.
Okay.
We start up, as we start hauling boats, and we're lucky if we go through the summer. We get it, but most of the time people want their boats for the nicer weather. So winter for us is all out.
It's busy. Well, I would think then the flip side, then the summer you're still probably building or in a design, maybe doing some design space.
Yeah.
Wow. So really it's not a seasonal. I was picturing a seasonal kind of thing.
It's not seasonal.
Wow. So how does someone, you've explained how you got into it, but how does someone actually, break in these days? Is it someone who's been looking at engineering, who has maybe something to do with CAD? Is it someone who, what is the type of person that now is doing this?
Sure. We train people because there isn't a large pool to draw from for boat building. And like myself, I came from building houses. Most of the people that we bring in have some sort of construction background, and it's okay if you can read a tape measure, you can use power tools, we can teach you the rest of it. It's just the idea of getting away from being square to something that does this.
I know, as I'm thinking about it, and you're saying, I know, it's when I think about that, and even think about the CAD and the multi-dimensions that you're talking about, that's something that for me to wrap my head around can be difficult. So, but where do you find these people?
We run ads, paper, online,
Really?
And we get an array of people, and it's funny because we'll get people that don't have the background but they have the desire to learn, and those are oftentimes they work out better.
So it's
because you can say, this is how we do it, and they go, okay, show me how you do it. This is how you do it, and they continue with that.
which is good. It's always, you're not starting with somebody having to redo,
Right.
having to retrain. So you don't really have to have a passion or a love for the water. This is something that it's not necessary. It's kind of a
No.
little different.
No, it helps,
Sure.
because you've got the appreciation. You have some history in boats, and you know what you're looking for, and that you want to keep the water on the right side of the boat.
One would hope, right?
yeah,
Out of the boat,
exactly.
not necessarily in the boat, right?
Correct.
I'm talking with Eric Everson, the shipyard facilities manager for Scarano Boat Builders, and we're having a very fun conversation. But it's boat building. It is a serious business. There are
Yes.
lots of things that come into play in terms of, making sure that things are certified and making sure that let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, do things change as rapidly when it comes to certification in that world of what you can do, what you can't do, lengths of things? How is that?
It doesn't. No, I wouldn't say it changes rapidly. There are regulations that we have to build to, being certified vessels, and even small recreational vessels that are built and they're manufacturing them. The original one is certified. The Coast Guard's going to come in and look at it and say, okay, this is a safe vessel for you to take out. Because we build new boats, different shapes, different lengths. Each vessel is inspected by the Coast Guard throughout the construction. Before we start building, they look at the designs, they approve the designs, and then we go from there. But as far as changing, you don't see a whole lot over the years.
How difficult is it? I've got to assume that, like anything that you're personally invested in, you're building something, you're working with something, you've got something. There's a length of time that you are devoting. This is your baby, right? Each project is your baby. How difficult is it as you get towards the end, and then the end when it's time for the owner now to come in and say, okay, gonna use this, gonna launch this?
There's always a challenge. There's a couple answers to that. There's always a challenge of this line there's a little bit of curve there, and I don't want that. I've got to make it perfect, and you want to make it perfect, and you strive to make it perfect. And sometimes, like you said, there's only so much time and so much money that you've got to make that decision of what's good, or, what's great, what works, and what's acceptable. And then you get to the point where this is awesome, I'm done, and then you got to give it up.
Sure.
And then you can always go see it, and it's always fun when you do see it.
So do people, when they generally are getting their custom boats made at Scarano, do they usually come for repair back to Scarano, or depending on where they
got there's a charter business that runs out of sort of hand in hand with Scarano's, and we get a fair amount of those boats coming back. We do have some other customers coming down from the canals because of the size of the lift that we have, and also our ability to deal with the Coast Guard, and our relationship with the Coast Guard, and which is good.
I know this will vary by size, but what's the average lifespan of a boat, or is it indefinite if you keep renovating?
If you keep up on it, it's indefinite. You keep. It's like a house. You've got houses that are 300 years old. You could have a boat that could be the same. As long as it's not all going to be the original parts, but as you've moved along and taken care of the things that have rotted, then you're good.
Well, like
That's
a house,
the big thing. It's maintenance.
Maintenance, I would assume. But like a house, though, do you have people that have had their boats for a while that all of a sudden they want like a total revamp? They want something. They want that boat, but they want something different. Or do they just start from the beginning? I mean, how does that work?
We did that to one of our boats. It was it's called Lexington, and it was originally, when we built it, it was called the Spirit of Gloucester.
Okay.
And it went through 2 owners after we built it. The first time they brought it back, and it was a nice interior, but it was Port Orford cedar, kind of a light wood, and some mahogany trim. The second folks that bought it came in and made a raised panel mahogany interior throughout the whole boat,
Okay.
which was a lot of fun to do. And then the third group that bought it came back and kept the mahogany on the first deck, tore the whole second deck off, and made this modern-looking second deck enclosure with large sliding panel doors and granite countertops, and it was a dramatic change.
Wow.
So yeah, and kept it on the same boat.
Wow.
So
I guess I've never really thought about those kinds of things. And when you're investing, I mean, I'm sure we're talking about a heavy investment of money.
yes.
What might something start at for a custom boat? And you could give me any size, any whatever, just to give us some idea.
You're more than $1 million.
Wow.
So it's, and again, it depends on what you want in the boat, how big the boat, type of finish. You could go bare bones and keep your costs down, and then over time, like we were talking, modify it and change the interior.
Well, if I had $1 million,
Would you buy a boat?
I would buy a
Come
boat,
see
and
us.
I would come see you, and I certainly wouldn't be going bare bones, because if you have $1 million, you should be able to.
Sure.
You must have the opportunity then. The testing that's done, do you actually, the boat has got to go in the water.
Yes.
So that's got to also be exciting, to be able to be in the boat and maneuvering it and testing it. And what's your role in all of that?
It is. I'm the one that launches it. I run run the heavy equipment and put it in the water. I do.
So you have to make sure nothing drops. It doesn't.
No, especially on some new construction that everybody's there watching. That's always a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I was going to say, how nerve-wracking is that?
Yeah, you just get through it. And you just smile and look at all the people, because they're all very excited about it.
Sure.
But I've seen some videos of some new launches, not from us,
Yep.
but from other yards where the launches haven't gone so well.
Well, yeah, that wouldn't be so. So you launch it. There's a process where it's tested.
Yes. So we'll get into starting up systems, getting the engines running, and once all that's up and running, then we'll use 55-gallon drums to simulate the weight of people.
Okay.
And we've already got an idea through calculations in the design of how many people we can get on the boat. So we take 55-gallon drums and we fill them up with water, put them on the center line,
Okay.
and take measurements around the boat to see how it's sitting on its water lines. Were our calculations right? Then what we do is we gradually, over 3 movements, move them outboard in both directions, measuring each time that the barrels are moved and filled, how the boat does. Does it sit on its lines where it should be? So that
Sure.
all of the people on the boat, if somebody says, "Hey, look, a whale,"
And
and
everybody
you've got
runs.
300 people running over to the side of the
Yeah.
boat, you want to know that the boat's just going to kind of go like this, as opposed to like that.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that how that works.
Yeah, and
So
we're using pendulums and measurements, and the Coast Guard's there for all these inspections as we're doing that.
So when someone says at home, the geometry, the calculus, all of that, all the algebra, all of those things, this is how you
Come
use
into
it.
play. Right.
Wow. So once you've tested all of that, does the boat then stay? Does the boat stay in the water? Does the boat come back out? What happens?
It depends on how far the boat. If it was complete when we got to that point.
Because how many times might you do that? Then you just mentioned.
Right. Well, usually what will happen is that there will be some odds and ends that are going to need to be wrapped up, to have the boat ready to be delivered. We do all the testing, then we'll come back, and chances are we'll pick it up and bring it back to the shop, just because you're not walking from the shop down to the river.
Yeah.
You're not wasting time walking
Sure.
back and forth.
Sure.
You're able to just go from the tool room or the mill shop right back on the boat.
Okay. Any downtime in between project 1 and project 2, or when?
Sometimes, and that's where the service work comes along. And also because we're right on the canal, New York Canal system, we've got transients coming down from Ohio, from Champlain, and we get people that are always hitting stuff in the river. So we're doing a lot of repairs that way,
All right.
or taking masts down, because you're putting them up.
Okay. Best day you've had at work?
Boy, you got me there.
Or
I enjoy my job. There are many things I enjoy about my job, but the one thing that I've enjoyed over time being here in Albany and on the river is seeing the river come back.
okay,
And I know it's not part of the boat building experience here, but seeing the Hudson come back, and there's a nest of eagles just south of us, and you happen to be, the doors will be open and be working, and look up and see a mature eagle fly across the end of the door of the shop, and it's just like, wow, they are coming back. This is, the river's coming back, and with the river coming back, it means more work for us.
sure. It's fascinating. If folks want to learn more about Scarano Boat Building, do you know the website off the top of your head, or should I just have them Google it?
Scaranoboat.com.
Okay. Any last minute thoughts about to try and if you're looking for anyone that you might want to interest in coming to work for Scarano?
We're always looking for welders, painters. Sure.
All right, perfect. Eric, thank you.
You're welcome.
This has been very interesting. Eric Everson from Scarano Boat Building. He is the shipyard facilities manager there. So if you want any other information, please go to the web, find out more. I encourage you to do that. I'm Mary Rozak. This has been Albany County News. I hope you'll join us again soon.